Have you ever wondered what lies in the depths of the ocean where none could hope to reach in their lifetime? Dark, desolate, and isolated, the ocean floor is home to secrets the surface world was never meant to know. Secrets we are never meant to see. Forbidden experiments lurking beneath the waves. Do you ever wonder just what happens down there?
Eggman, come over here!
Ah, my bones! Oh, I knew I should have. Why are you doing this?
Happy April Fools!
Oh my God! That's it. I'm calling the police. 911.
I am the police.
I miss my wife, Tails. I miss her a lot. I'll be back.
So how about this for a hot topic, huh? No, not the type you pee in. The type of thing you talk about, and a lot. Pressure. It's a game. On Roblox. It's got fish in it. Okay, I'll be more detailed. I've been getting a decent amount of requests to cover this game, but I initially hesitated because I felt that doing a gameplay synopsis and analysis in my usual style just wouldn't cover all I want to say about it, and I think other people have already done that well. Doing a game synopsis works better when the game isn't commonly known, I think. But this one, hoo boy, this one. Lots of people know this one. So for them, I will finally deliver unto you my opinion on the fish game. For the people who don't know this one, we gotta go over some backstory. Pressure, developed by the collective developer Urban Shade, is a multiplayer horror game hosted on Roblox. It is inspired by games such as Iron Lung, Ultra Kill, and SCP Containment Breach, but it is mostly inspired by Doors, another Roblox horror game where the objective is to survive through a long series of rooms separated by, well, doors. In each room, there can be monsters, sometimes taking the form of a boss fight. Others just require you to be listening and watching for indicators of their presence, like flickering lights and multiple of the same door. Both games require you to rely on trial and error to succeed. Not gonna go too deep into Doors, since you'll get the gist of it when I give my overview of Pressure's mechanics, I hope. The game was fully released on July 7th, 2024, though it was in beta testing starting on February 7th of the same year. I found out about it around the middle of July. It's notorious by this point to a much further extent than Doors is. Even if you haven't seen gameplay or even know of the game, it's quite possible you've seen this face before. Don't worry, we'll get to him later. I myself grew into a love-hate relationship with the game after at least 10 failed runs, one of which finally got to the end where I was eaten by tiny bugs. And then later runs either ended too early because somebody was talking in my ear.
Dusky, are you under a lot of pressure right now?
Which would you choose, infinite bacon and no games,
or because I had trouble with unfamiliar ground. But enough about my skill issues. Today's video will have multiple parts. Part 1 is going to be about the gameplay. I'm going to gather up all my knowledge about the game and present it for you to get full context of what exactly the black site holds within and how to deal with it, as well as the story surrounding it and its inhabitants. Of course, there will be critiques sprinkled in, because no matter how much I like a certain one, every game has its flaws. Part 2 is going to be about how the game shapes up compared to Doors. What it does the same, what it does differently, what I think it could do better, what I think it does better. Things like that. Part 3 is going to be about the game's community and various problems I believe surround it. Notable issues I've noticed about how the game's characters and community are handled and why the space around it differs greatly from other games like it, including Doors. The pros and cons of fostering a community like this, and how it could affect the game's longevity. It'll make more sense when we get to it, I think. Enough stalling. Get that diving gear on. You need it. I don't. I'm just in your computer screen. But we're both heading down there whether you like it or not.
Good luck out there.
It is the 10th of the month, sometime in 2025. You are an inmate of redacted high-security prison. Your crimes are irrelevant. Whether or not you were falsely charged is irrelevant. You have served 93 days of your sentence. Today, 3 men from the Urban Shade Corporation, being escorted by heavily armed guards, arrived at the prison. They were searching for draftees to help them retrieve a crystal of sorts, a highly important asset that they were unable to secure during a major security breach in one of their facilities. They stated that the risk of death was high, but whoever could retrieve the asset and return it to them would be pardoned, released with a cleared record, and receive a large amount of cash. Many of your fellow inmates signed up. You signed up as well. Welcome to the Haddle Black Site, or at least what's left of it. Obviously it isn't in the best condition, but hey, you are expendable. You are not expected to return, so who cares what you think of the feng shui? Now, if the earlier synopsis wasn't clear, our mission here is to make it through roughly 100 doors and get a crystal from the depths of the facility. Back when it was in operation, something broke out of containment and made it impossible for the Black Site to continue functioning as normal. And trained staff from Urban Shade sent down here suffer heavy losses that aren't easy for the organization to recover from. So they have come up with the handy expendables protocol, meaning they just send desperate prisoners down here to give it a shot instead, because their lives aren't as important or whatever. We are one of those desperate prisoners, and this is just our first stop. Now, I want to cover a lot about the gameplay, but runs are often very random, meaning you may or may not encounter certain threats, items, and visuals during each one. I'm going to use my first winning run, yay, as the basis for my analysis of most of the mechanics. It might end up being a monster analysis for the most part, but look, I'm so cute. Oh yeah, disclaimer, I play this game with deaf mode. One of the first things you'll notice is me picking up a bunch of documents and stuff. That's the currency in here, like the coins and doors. It's loose assets and information that we've been requested to collect alongside the crystal. I recommend picking up most of it. You'll get to go shopping sooner or later. Immediately, you are also taught to use the keycard on doors that look like this. It's normally harder to find, but hey, again, immediate but subtle tutorials are good game design. When near the card, it will emit a buzzing sound and also occasionally a sound like a wind chime. You can see that appear in deaf mode with a blue arrow navigating towards its location. Nice to have if you're bad at finding stuff, I suppose. Some rooms in the Black Site are pitch black if you don't have a light source. That brings us to our first enemy to discuss, the Squiddles. The Squiddles are floating black squid-like creatures that only appear in dark or partially dark rooms. Shining a light on them will make them rush towards you and scare you, taking health as they do. You'll also be jumped if you stay too close to one for too long, so back off if it starts pulling a face. Okay, advance a few more doors here. Time for vents. You'll have to crouch down and crawl through these sometimes to find a keycard, or just get around debris or walls to get to the next door. Sometimes they can be a little tricky to navigate, but that is the least of your worries if the lights flicker like this. That means one of the most common problem causers is on its way and fast. The anglers. Before they arrive, the lights will flicker and you will hear a sound from far away. The sound can vary depending on the angler variant. Yes, there are 6 types of rushing enemies in this game, as opposed to the main 2 indoors. Before you get on me, yes, I know they're not all biologically anglers, it's just easier to call them that. In order to avoid being caught, you must hide in a locker or in any area that is out of sight, like a side room, though be sure to hide behind a wall or a table, vent or alternate hallway, though only use the latter if you're sure where the angler will pass. All anglers can be avoided with this tactic. The one after us here is the most common type. Emitting thick black smoke, it will produce a low screech as it rapidly approaches and will take out any light sources in its path, often leaving you in the dark and vulnerable to squiddle spawns. As for the other 5 variants, well, why not give them their time while we're on the topic? Variant 2 is Pinky, a very obviously named fish that emits a dirty pink smoke and a much higher screech than any other variant. She takes much longer to arrive and does not flicker the lights before she rushes, so before leaving a room with hiding spots, always listen for her screams. She, unlike any other variant, won't take out the lights as she rushes. Variant 3 is Frogger, technically spelled F-R-O-G-E-R, no double G, but whatever. She is a brown frogfish emitting dusty smoke and a slightly higher pitched growling than the standard angler, but with more of a breathy sound. She also takes longer to arrive. When she has arrived, don't write her off immediately, as she will circle back to catch you off guard. She can either go back and forth in front of you quickly and then come back one more time soon after, or just run once in front of you and then come back after. If you're hiding in a locker, exit it while she's gone to reset your hiding timer so you aren't forced out at a bad time. I forgot to mention earlier that you can't stay in a locker forever. Depending on how late into the game you are, your character only has so long before they start to get scared of being in the locker and will leave automatically, aka claustrophobia, the fear of being trapped. If you don't leave before this occurs, though, you won't be hurt by the locker itself. Just try not to have it happen on top of an enemy, and a good example to use would be Variant 4, Chainsmoker. This guy is probably my least favorite, although I've gotten a lot better at dealing with him. He resembles a blobfish and emits thick, bright green smoke. Its approaching noise is a high screech accompanied by what sounds like chains rattling. It takes a long time to arrive, but it does flicker the lights, so this guy is one of the reasons you should never take a light flicker as a false alarm, no matter how long it takes for you to start hearing something coming. Do not hide early with this guy. That green smoke is not just an aesthetic. It will make your phobia worse, and your hiding timer will get way shorter, so much shorter that you only get about 3 seconds in a locker before you're forced out. You don't want to hide until he's basically right on top of you, or you'll probably get dumped out right on top of him, speaking from experience. Variant 5 is Blitz, a pretty freaky dude who emits bluish smoke, although they do categorize him as gray, perhaps that's just me. Now, I don't see this one too much, but it's a doozy. It flickers the lights and emits a sound much like Variant 1 does, and takes about the same amount of time to get there. However, it will always flicker the lights twice, so if you see that, hide basically as soon as you hear the growling start, because this guy will blast through the room at light speed soon after. Variant 6, and honestly it isn't even really an angler, but it sorta looks like one, so it gets to be included, is Pandemonium, a nasty looking fellow who takes a very long time to arrive after flickering the lights. Now, hiding in a locker is not enough to evade this one. If you choose to use this method of hiding, Pandemonium will notice and will attempt to break into the locker, starting a minigame where you have to prevent it from ramming the doors open by keeping your mouse in the center of the screen. After a while of trying, it will leave you alone. If there is an area available that works for it, using the hide near a desk or in a vent strat will let you avoid the minigame entirely. It doesn't line up often, but it sure is nice when it does. Just make sure you are fully covered, because if Pandemonium can see any part of you, it will immediately pathfind directly to your location. Anytime the lights flicker, it can be any one of these guys. You know, minus Pinky anyway. Mind you, the important light flicker is just in fully lit rooms. Some lights like work lights and red lights will flicker, but that's just for atmosphere. Angler encounters will happen quite often during your run and can occur at any time, not just after you open a door. There exists a spawn timer with these guys, and if you spend too long in a room, there is a chance one will appear, so don't let your guard down. You'll see me fending these fellows off a decent amount during the footage, so now you know exactly how I'm doing so. Deaf mode certainly makes it easier for me, someone who will usually forget there is a threat coming if it takes too long to get there. ADHD be silly like that. The mode puts a color-coded vignette on screen depending on the distance and type of the angler currently headed your way, screaming, "Hey stupid, there's a dude on the way, don't go look at that pretty light yet." There's also these footstep indicators. They're supposed to help with another enemy, but you just got so used to seeing them that, well, they never helped me. Oh, and one more thing to mention. So, hiding in lockers is usually a valid and common strategy, but always make sure to check the locker you want to use for an eye lurking behind the bars. Coming in a variety of colors, but usually sporting purple, is the Void Mass, a goopy entity that crawls into and hides in lockers. If you hide in a locker containing one, you will be grabbed and yanked in, where your health will quickly decrease as the mass digests you. You can be saved if another player is with you. The locker you're trapped in will glow purple, shake, and show through walls, so it's obvious to others that you're in trouble. If you're alone though, well, that's it for you. Coming up on door 18, we meet another big fella. This mutated bull shark is Eyefestation. It can appear in hallways with open windows no matter their size, and will constantly try to tug your view in its direction to look at it. If you do take a look, you will take quick chip damage until you look away. Heading through the door at the end of the hall will make her leave. Lockers don't affect anything, but you won't be hurt by its eyes if you hide in one. It can be quite the inconvenience if it spawns in a side room where you're meant to look for a keycard, but otherwise it isn't a huge issue unless there are other factors involved. If you hate yourself, you can blind it with the flash beacon item, which makes it go into an enraged state where it is much harder to resist its pull. It will remain in this state for the rest of your run until you die. It will also spawn far more often, almost as much as it possibly can, which is basically in any room with a window. If you do this with other players, it'll be normal for the rest of them. I totally did not find this out the hard way. Pro tip, do not use the flash beacon as a light source in long hallways. Just don't. And now we're getting into the heat of it. Multiple threats here and stuff is appearing more frequently as well. Another angler, yada yada, but we have multiple doors. And the intercom reciting the Konami code, but that is just an Easter egg. Normally, the intercom would try to trick you into heading into the wrong door, cause if you do, you will be clawed by what is known as the good people, a fleshy mass of corpses wearing a mask. It does more than half your health and damage. And this little guy is involved too. His name is Painter, spelled in a funny way, but he's only a minor part of this problem, so his analysis comes a little later. The good people will always be the antagonist of multi-door rooms. Always check for multiple doors when entering a room that is not a hallway. You can tell if a door is fake by getting close to the wall next to it and listening for growling or breathing, or by checking the sign next to it. If it is a fake door, the sign will occasionally spark and will have horizontal scan lines running down it to signify Painter has hijacked it. Upon a successful evasion, he might get pissy with you from down the hall. Just ignore him. If you mess it up though, he can either apologize or just insult you. Continuing onwards, just a bunch of documents, business as usual, and there he is again. So this is Painter's revenge and an apt time to explain him a little more. He is a sentient AI that likes to create art, not generate art. I mean, he can actually draw. He draws his own faces in real time, which is cute. However, due to his processing power, he's been forced by Urban Shade to basically sit down here and mine Bitcoin until he fries. The first thing to go were his personality drivers, so he's unstable. That's why you often see him act apologetic and then switch up to making fun of you. But also, he's a big jerk. He's behind half the stuff that kills you in this game. Notably right now, we can see he's got control of turrets in the ceiling. This room is a bad one for this to be happening because we need a key card. And while searching, if you wander into that vision cone, you're gonna get a nice dosage of lead if you don't find cover right away. However, in most rooms containing a turret, there will be a deactivation panel near the end. So if you avoid the site for long enough to reach that, you can put him out of commission for the room and be free to look around. Do be warned that any angler can spawn in this room, so make note of any hiding spots when entering just in case. He can't shoot you through a locker. Another strategy you could use is to make him have to reload. If you set him off enough, I think it's 5 rounds or so, he has to reload and will take about 5 seconds to do so. During that time, he won't shoot you and you can be wherever you want. You'll know if he's doing this if you hear the turrets go back into the ceiling before you hit the switch or leave the room. This strat is less effective if there are multiple turrets, so don't rely on it. Another awesome thing Painter can do is lock you in a room with Ifestation. If he does this, Ifest will be enraged regardless of if you've flashed it or not, and you've just gotta survive until the door unlocks, which happens on a timer and can be heard with a click. Hiding in a locker makes the timer pause, so it's not an effective strategy. Painter will also call you a coward. So Painter did something unexpected on this run. Those turrets are pretty automatic. They fire at anything that moves. It's just because of him that they're active. So if there is something else in the room that moves, it'll fall to them just like you would, such as this wall dweller. Remember when I mentioned the footstep indicators not really helping with a certain enemy? This is that enemy. These things have a chance to show up in any room and will stalk you, gradually getting faster until they reach you, kick you over, and cut your throat. You have to turn around and catch them before they do so to stop them, and they'll flee, but be warned, sometimes they'll come right back and try to catch you off guard a second time. Only a second time, though. They're usually done after that. I stink at dealing with these guys. It feels like as soon as I look behind me, they're not there, and then when I go back to business as usual, suddenly... well, you get the picture. But they are not invincible. As you can see here, they can be killed by other hazards like the turrets and quote, node monsters, which are what anglers are classified as. So technically, Painter just saved my life. Not what he wanted, probably, because if he hadn't, I would not have made it to the end of the game. Sucks to suck. But hey, I get free food out of it. If a wall dweller dies, you can take a piece of it and you can eat it. Doing so is actually extremely beneficial. It will turn your health bar purple and give you a passive health regeneration effect for the rest of your run until you die. You also get my favorite achievement. It does not persist if you die and revive. Next up, we have a water room. Navigating these is pretty simple except you're swimming. Sometimes they're short, sometimes they're longer. If they last a while, you're expected to use these green flares to tell which direction to go. The same applies if you see green lights in rarer rooms, like rooms with cave-like structures or in scripted endgame segments. If you venture too far outside of the path that these flares light, at least in endgame areas anyway, you will be swarmed with parasites until you re-enter the safe zone. Point is, green is good, dark is just bad. Okay, so that is most of the usual threats you'll encounter during your run. In terms of monsters, you can also be damaged by running into spinning fan blades and steam, plus you can fall in a hole. Just watch where you're stepping. The big stuff comes past door 50 or so, but first, you might want to spend the documents you've collected to restock on valuable supplies. Yeah, that's right, the reason you're playing this game, both lore-wise and internet-wise. This is Sebastian Solace, the only friendly face around here, or at least the only one who won't kill you unless you actively seek it out. Sebastian runs a makeshift shop hidden away in a vent most of the time, but sometimes it can be in the water if you're in the middle of a sequence of flooded rooms. The items he carries may vary, but usually he'll have light sources, medical items, and a code breaker. Batteries are for sale on the table near him. I forgot to mention, you can use any batteries you find to add charge to your light sources. He's also got the keycard you need to open the door to the next room, though you can either buy his or use your own code breaker to unlock the door without his keycard, which will annoy him. Now, Sebastian is a bit of a hot topic amongst the community, probably in part from being voiced by
Gianni Matragrano,
known for his role as Gabriel in Ultra Kill, but also because everybody thinks he's hot. I just think he's really cool. Give me a good human experimentation or transformation story and a character design this good and I'm hooked. Because yeah, he was human. Then Urban Shade came into the mix. If you want to know more, I will vouch for Seb here and tell you to save up $1,000 to buy his document. It explains all of him and explains just how the black site came to be in such a state. Because as friendly as he is to you, he's not quite innocent even if his actions are totally justified. Note that earlier I said he can't hurt you unless you actively provoke him, yeah? Well, the #1 way to do that is with a flash beacon. Just like Infestation, using this on him will upset him, causing him to grab you, break the device, and slam you into the wall, dealing more than half your health bar. If you come back with another beacon and do it again, he'll just outright shoot you. That is a death. No takesies backsies. You can't get away by crawling back into the vent either. He's got wall hacks. I enjoy that he actually will react to you coming back after flashing him once. He'll groan as if he knows just what you're gonna do. He'll also show annoyance if you buy his flash beacon after already flashing him, because I figure he's just awaiting his fate. I like this attention to detail. I guess you can also piss him off by climbing on him, but I never really figured out how. I think you gotta climb on the desk first, and also I'm respectful of the man's boundaries, so I won't. But getting shoved off after climbing him doesn't hurt you, physically anyway. Now that we've introduced Sebastian, I can actually talk about the death sequence because that's all him. Every time you die to anything in the game, except if you die to him, Sebastian will be there to both make fun of you and also tell you what you did wrong. He will show you a document, and each time you die to a specific threat, more lines will be made visible in its corresponding document. Said document will also be available to read in the lobby area. Documents can also be obtained by simply encountering certain things, or if you find them nearby various items in-game. Every time you find one in the wild, you won't be able to read it right there, as Sebastian will be there to snatch it away. However, he'll have it ready for you to peruse the next time you're in the lobby. For example, Painter has a document you can find if you run into his room during a run. I got it prior to this recent update when they gave him a new voice and appearance, so it isn't here in my updated footage where I hunted for and found him again, but since I have his document, I can read about him in the lobby. Documents found this way will be filed under the Urban Shade category most of the time, and documents resulting from deaths will be filed under Monsters and Hazards. You are able to revive after death twice in a run by spending 30 Robux each time. However, you can also buy tokens in the lobby using Kroner, the currency you get as a reward for finishing runs or just doing well in failed ones. Example, opening a lot of doors or collecting a lot of data. So you don't have to use real money if you're up for grinding a bit. Kroner can also be used in the pre-run shop to have Sebastian drop off items for you to enter a run with. Doing difficult things in a run will unlock different things in this shop. For example, beating the game allows you to buy the hand-cranked flashlight, or for more of a challenge, if you survive an encounter with the ultra-rare multi-monster during a run, the store will offer the gummy light from rooms. You can only buy 2 items and 3 batteries from the pre-run shop though, so I personally wouldn't waste a slot on that thing. Sebastian seems to share the sentiment. On the topic of revives, I want to say that it's really nice to see Roblox games where it's evident that the devs aren't in it for money. money. Sure, there are ways to support them, but it's not pay to win. Revives are cheap and possible to get for free. And if you want to wear any jumpsuits outside of the game, it's only 5 Robux for the shirts and pants each. Private servers are also completely free. The only sort of expensive thing in-game is starting a 50-player lobby, which I suppose I understand because I doubt they want hordes of expendables constantly testing the limits of the black site 24/7. Still, it's only about $5 in real money to make a lobby like this. Okay, back to the run. Moving past Sebastian, we hit a somewhat common but not guaranteed room, one with a pipe puzzle. It's pretty self-explanatory, but sometimes these can be a little tricky. We must solve it to deactivate the electric water in the room so we can cross. This is not the only type of puzzle room in the game. There are other types, such as steam rooms, where you've got to get across to turn off the steam, but I only ever saw this one 3 times, and our performance in it was embarrassing to say the least. Speaking of this room being a little rarer, I can turn over to talk about rare rooms now. I'm on a roll with the segues today. Notably, I found a rare room this run, that being the bathroom. Yeah, I'm serious. It's not common that you find the bathroom. Hope you went before you got here. You can flush the toilets, you know. Rare rooms and pressure can be a number of things. Normally they're references to other media, but they can contain harder to find items or entities and stand on their own. Some rare rooms I've found include this scary whispering pit room, the office area from Five Nights at Freddy's sister location, the chest room, which is a reference to another Roblox game called Survive the Night, a room full of void lockers that can be uncommon colors such as red, green, or yellow, and an unfinished office room with developer notes on the wall. I've also come across a full segment based on rooms. I swear, this game wants me to relive traumatic moments. You know, in terms of secrets, you can also find rare faces on the Squiddles. I've taken up the hobby of taking a run or 2 a day looking for new faces on them. Some of my favorites that I've found are Whiteface, Clyde, and the Troll Face. I'm still looking for a Rush Squiddle. Some other minor secrets include items from other games such as the crucifix from Doors and my favorite, the singing fish. I am a fan of adding replayability like this. Keeps you coming back, looking for secrets. So, passing door 50, there are several late game things that can happen. On a run with the most common odds, you'll be encountering the game's first boss fight, which you're trained for beforehand with a series of rooms that teach you to fix generators. On getting to the boss fight, you should be ready to fix the 7 or more generators you need. The number increases depending on the amount of players. You're not alone here though. Above there circles a Voltus Limunaria, or just a searchlight. It's a whale-like creature with bright orange eyes on its underside that shines large spotlights below it as it moves through the air. As the cutscene before the fight shows, you do not want to be caught in one of those spotlights. If you are, you'll hear a bellow from the creature briefly before you are hooked and dragged into its mouth for an instant death. Interestingly, on the initial hooking, your health drops to a low number, with your character trying to pull out the hook. It seems as if maybe early on or in the future it was planned for it to be possible to save people after they've been hooked, similar to how you can free someone from a void locker. Otherwise, why bother with the health decrease? But it isn't currently possible, trust me. I looked. Anyway, after you hear that bellow, you have a very short amount of time to get into a hiding place. Each time you're spotted, you have even less time before being hooked, so it's best to just not get spotted at all. The searchlight will move faster depending on how many generators are fixed. Concluding the boss fight, there is one thing I want to mention. A flaw in the game. Yeah, no, this is still a critique as well as an analysis, even though I'm hopelessly hyperfixated on this game at the moment. In my opinion, the sound mixing and pressure needs some work. There are times when you can't hear much over how darn loud the music is, and this sound effect right here, when the searchlight hooks you, is way louder than anything else. Me and my friends usually turn the volume down before stepping through the door to the fight because we do not like the loud noise of the NPC being snagged. There are a variety of other points where I think stuff does not need to be as loud as it is, though it's tricky to decide whether or not anglers should be quieter because I guess the goal is to make them loud enough to hear from afar. I personally dislike how loud they are on arrival though, and I have this issue with Doors' Rush as well. I kinda wish games like this would lower the monster volume a little once they're in the room with you because damn. Now I said there are several late game things you may have to do. Fun fact, neither are actually guaranteed. There's a really low chance you won't encounter the first searchlight Searchlight boss area. The second boss area is not a part of the usual roster, and rather has what feels like a 50-50 chance to appear on a run. This is the Trench Bleeder segment. It's a simpler area where in order to move ahead, you must exit the black site and swim through a trench to reach the next part of the building. While the usual enemies do not appear here, you are gonna have to watch out for the Trench Bleeder above you. It is a massive machine that walks along the ocean floor, violently shaking the area as it does. If you are under its foot when it steps, well, it can't step on you if you're in the trench. Don't worry. Do make sure that the screen shake doesn't make you swim into the lava below though. If needed, you can turn that off. I found it quite disorienting. An additional threat here comes in the form of little parasites. They are not a problem if you remain on the path marked by green beacons, but they will latch onto you in groups and chip away your health if you stray too far from the path. The intercom mentions this before you depart into the trench, and this is a reason I believe this segment should be more common. Specifically this announcement, because during the end of the game, where you must again venture into the deep ocean, it does not inform you of the parasite's existence like it does here. So either the trench area should be more likely to appear, or this announcement should really be put in the final segment too, because while normally the parasites do not take much health, if you're really hurt going into the final boss, it can be a run ender if you didn't even know the beacons meant something beforehand. Maybe I'm bad at context clues, but I think the main issue was that I did not know the reason the parasites were showing up because I'd never been informed of it, so I kept triggering it, and then I died from it. My point here is that no part of a game's tutorial, no matter how spread out the tutorial is, should depend on random chance for you to see it, or expect you to rely on the Roblox kids in your stream chat that are trying to be backseat gamers and you're trying to ignore them because it's annoying and then they just happen to say something that's actually right for once, but how was I supposed to know they actually had a point that time? Gotta stop spoiling the final boss before we get to it. We're only just coming out of the trench. What we gotta do before that is grab that crystal. That's the whole reason we're here, so grab that we do. And just as the intercom tells us before we do so, the power goes out, as it was relying on the crystal. This is not just for spooky vibes. The monsters of the black site are not done with us yet, and this just makes their job easier. Since the next thing on the agenda is to leave the black site after completing what they sent us down here for, we gotta keep going through an area called the Ridge to reach the extraction point. Careful before you head in. The correct way is lit by green lights. Painter will often, or always, not sure yet, set up fake doors around the area, and you cannot use the same tells as before to differentiate, you know, due to the lack of sign. Instead, a bad door will have yellow light coming from under it, and again, the breathing. The Ridge is probably the least friendly place in the game. All normal monsters can appear here, but now there's no visual warning, no lights flickering for the anglers or anything. It's all on your listening skills to make sure you're not blindsided by an overgrown fish. Plus, the place being dark means squiddles are everywhere, so you gotta be careful where you point that light of yours. Unless you're lucky and got a black light. Those lights don't affect them. Turrets can appear here too, but usually only one at a time. And they're always on top of something because there isn't power for them to be in the ceiling, so being behind them is okay. The worst thing in the Ridge would be the music. Not because it's bad or anything, no, because it makes you explode. Nobody takes me seriously when I say that, but basically, when you're near it, you'll hear beeping, which will intensify until the bomb on your back, placed there to prevent you from running off into the water to escape the black site prematurely, goes off, ensuring your instant demise. So only get close to that music if absolutely necessary, like if you need to find a keycard. My strategy to avoid dealing with the music and all is to always carry as many code breachers as I can find when entering into the final parts of the game. Code breachers allow you to open any door without the required keycard, so with these, if there's music, I can avoid having to get near it and just hack open the door without the keycard. One last thing, it's basically guaranteed that at least one wall dweller will spawn in the Ridge. They're not usually an issue due to the constant angler spawns taking them out, but watch your back because I've let my guard down before it paid for it. Check for any around before you get in a locker too, because they'll get stuck outside and if you hide in one, will instantly kill you when you leave. If you're lucky enough, you'd have hidden in that locker because of an angler, so that might take it out and then you get a dweller chunk, which is very nice to have at this point. 50-50 on the situation being horrible or a Christmas miracle. I've had both. Thankfully, you can still revive in the Ridge if you have
money.
The endgamey nature of it made me think I couldn't until I made it there without 2 deaths under my belt. But your second chances end after you exit the ridge into the final area. The guys over the intercom don't really care if you've just been through hell, they're gonna get a bit more use out of you. There's broken stuff, specifically a number of wires, outside in the water, and they want you to fix that. So out of the airlock you go, seeing a searchlight on your way, an omen for what you'll be dealing with here. It's basically the midpoint boss with the generators again, but this time you're swimming and in a much larger area than before. Again, stay near the green light. While the searchlight looks for you, you need to fix at least 7 wires, higher with more players. The wires are evident from a distance by their bright yellow sparking. As you fix more wires, more searchlights appear, and they seem to move faster as well. Thus, I recommend getting as many difficult wires as you can find out of the way first, like ones around the middle of the area, because when there's 3 searchlights, there is rarely an opening to fix that wire safely. And focus on the wires on the surface first, too. Wires can spawn both above and inside the caves, and of course the ones in the caves are easiest because the searchlights can't see you in there, so don't do those first or you're just gonna make the surface ones worse. After fixing all necessary wires, you'll be instructed to go and turn on the cannon. The bright yellow light coming from a hole in the center of the map signals its location, so swim in there and flip the switch inside. You are safe inside the hole, so you do not need to hide if you see searchlights above you. But you gotta head out of the hole now and get to the extraction point to finally get this all over with. And to do that, you need to retrace the path you took coming in. I tend to get lost doing this, but you can go through the cave across from the switch and swim through hiding spots until you're close to an area that looks like this, where you can see a yellow spotlight. Then go through the cave behind it. Normal business for most people, not great when you're me and your directional skills are on par with Leon from Pokemon. This is the last cave we gotta go through to reach the end. This is also the last possible place you can die unless you know you go up the path afterwards and get bugs on you. One last searchlight will park itself over the gap in the cave ceiling and you must dodge in between its spotlights to pass. Don't get greedy. Wait for the right time. No matter how long it makes you wait, don't worry. It will receive swift karmic retribution as you leave, so use that as motivation. And with that, we're done. We're out. We are safe. All that's left to do now is leave. Head on through those green-lit doors to be picked up by an urban shade submarine and taken back to the surface, pardoned of all charges, and provided with a good amount of money, a set of plane tickets, and a phone. Sweet deal. Just don't bother telling anyone what you saw. It's not like they'd believe you. Congrats on your win! Hopefully. No shame if you didn't get it this time, there's always next time. But there's what a typical run of Pressure looks like. Hoo boy, that was a lot! Wanted to give you a bit of context and went on a tirade. I hope you enjoyed it though. Don't you worry, we're not at the end quite yet, no, not even close. Before I get into some critique on Pressure's other facets, not just its gameplay, I feel like we can't look at Pressure without looking at its predecessor, Doors. I would like to present a comparison of the two, and what I feel each does better or worse than the other.
Good luck out there.
So, getting started, I want to let you know right away that yes, I know about Doors Floor 2. Haven't played yet, but I know about it. But because it didn't exist when Pressure was being developed and when it was released, I am not going to make any comparisons between the two. We are sticking firmly to Door 1 and the back door, aka the Hunt update, in terms of what I believe Pressure took inspiration from. But that's not guaranteeing the newest update won't come up at all. So, firstly, obviously the gameplay loop is pretty similar. Not gonna focus on that. More than just Pressure has done it. It was inspired by Doors, which was inspired by Rooms, which was probably inspired by Spooky's House of Jump Scares. What I want to focus on first is the monsters. Before the Friendly Fire update, it felt to me like many of the mechanics of Pressure were just copying Doors. In my opinion, please put your pitchforks away. Thankfully, Pressure expands on these mechanics in a fresh way, though I still feel like more unique monster warnings and killing methods could be added. The monsters you'll likely encounter first in Pressure and indoors are the rushing types, or node monsters as they tend to be called in developer terms. I think that's because they go from room to room following a node path. I couldn't find amazing clarification on this. Anyway, the rushing monsters indoors include Rush, Ambush, and Blitz. In Pressure, we have all 5 angler variants, not counting Pandemonium, who's in his own kinda category. Most of them have the same tell, with the lights flickering and the roaring sound being heard from afar before they blast through the rooms ahead, breaking all light sources. So normal angler is basically just a Rush clone. It felt a bit lame at first when I only knew about the common angler variant, but now that I've seen the others, I'll say that the way Rush was improved upon for Pressure is interesting and has me more willing to excuse what aspects it copies. When playing Floor 1, often Rush just became tedious and an expected nuisance. After he shows up enough, you're just not scared of him anymore. Basically, if you saw that light flicker, you knew it was him. No uncertainty. If he didn't come as quickly as usual, you knew it was Ambush. Either of the two, no variance, even if Ambush did strike more fear due to its higher difficulty. But with the anglers, there's always that uncertainty. Everyone has a different behavior, and so you're always going to have to listen after that flicker and decide what to do, whether it's to wait a long time and jump into hiding at just the right time to avoid Chainsmoker's gas effect, or to be prepared for a backtrack with Frogger's ambush traits. So dealing with the anglers rarely gets as stale as dealing with Rush did sometimes, cause you just never know. Honestly, the biggest problem I had with Pressure and copying was the multiple doors monster, aka the good people and painter combo. Before Painter was given more of an obvious part in everything, because it wasn't clear that he was behind as many threats as he was before the update, I was surprised at this threat just being the same as Dupe from Doors. I think with Painter involved though, with him actually talking, it feels just a tad fresher. What I like is there are more tells if a door is fake compared to Doors. While originally you'd just try to listen for breathing behind the door, or look for a different number, which to be honest, I'm not sure how many people actually bother with that one. Added signals include the signs sparking and the scanline effect over the numbers. Makes it quicker for experienced players to just head on up, check for scanlines, and head on through if they find the right one, rather than playing FNAF 4 against every door frame sequentially. So I enjoy the way Pressure does it better, but it's definitely still a bit of a copy. Then we have the less frequent monsters, Eyefestation first. Definitely inspired by Eyes from Doors, but now with an added difficulty. Eyes could often be too easy to get around due to it not really doing anything to try and get you to look at it, often relying too much on the element of surprise when players didn't expect it to be in the next room, which often was lost due to its noise and the bright blue light coming off of it, visible from under a doorframe. The idea of tugging your mouse in its direction like iFest does is a great addition to the mechanic and makes it much less of a minor nuisance and more of an actual prevalent issue. Another less frequent monster would be the Squiddles. Now they're pretty frequent still, but it's not always predictable when they'll be around. I like these guys so much more than Screech, seriously. I and many others agree that Screech is annoying and sometimes you just can't quite get her in time, but with the Squiddles you actively choose to engage. They're an avoidable problem. Sure, they do a lot of damage, but they don't force themselves on you, and if you get hurt, it's your fault. Going through dark rooms and doors, you gotta actively stop and do a twirl to kick off the little cretin every so often, which impedes on you actually getting through the dark room. Screech works, but I think she's much more of an acquired taste, I guess. And lastly, for monsters, I'd like to compare Glitch, Void, and Mr. Lope. Lope? I don't know. All being meant purely to prevent players from being stuck out of bounds or in a non-generated room. They do basically the same thing. They fix stuff. I didn't go over Lope in the gameplay segment because normally you don't and shouldn't see him. Lope is a fusion of Void and Glitch, handling both of their functions. Like Void, he'll keep you from being too far behind everyone, and like Glitch, if you get stuck in a broken room or out of bounds, he will save you. If he has to come get you when you're far behind, he'll damage you. If he's saving you from a bug, he will not. I can't in good conscience call Mr. Lope a copy of either Void or Glitch, because both of these entities need to be in the game to prevent disastrous bugs from occurring. Technically, it's more efficient to combine them into one dude like this too. Plus, while Void and Glitch don't really have any connection to the story of Doors, Mr. Lope is actually very entwined in the lore of Pressure, which I feel makes his appearance feel more special. He's a man who died early on in the Black Site's history and haunts the place. He has the respect and dubious previous employment of powerful creatures like Sebastian, and is the reason the pre-run shop exists, since he made Sebastian set it up. He's also why Sebastian appears when you die and shows you information on the monsters. Sometimes he can be seen standing behind him during the death screen. Sebastian mentions that he is very specific about how much information he can show. As for why Lopi has control over a lot of what we see, well, maybe we'll find out down the line. But that's all I got for any monster quote-unquote copying. Other stuff is minor but expected, like the you can't stay in a locker forever mechanic being kind of a necessity for a good gameplay loop. I do have other things to mention though. Firstly, Pressure's model quality is a lot better than Doors. On taking another look at monsters like Seek and Figure, I noticed how jagged they look. I never really felt that way about any of the models seen in Pressure. Sure, you can see the segments, but I think that's Roblox. That's to be expected. Heck, I think it might even be required from what I've watched Roblox dev friends of mine model with the Roblox studio. Most things in Pressure feel a lot smoother with better textures and normal maps, along with animations being cleaner as well. I don't know how doable stuff like smoothly moving sludge is in Roblox Studio, but it's noticeable that Seek and his goop have a lot of sharp edges. It's just the easiest example. I also think that Pressure has far better room variety. Often Doors had a lot of areas that got a bit samey after too many runs. I think they have vastly improved this in the update with Floor 2. Before that though, Pressure included tons of rare rooms and even new set pieces that weren't guaranteed to be in rooms, like the containment chambers containing fun objects, or these giant holding areas having a random thing in the middle that could be anything from a giant eye to a hulking ball of purple goo. This room variety, coupled with document redactions being gradual, gives the game more replayability. Admittedly, I stopped playing Doors faster than I did with Pressure, and heck, with Pressure it's only cause I kinda burnt myself out on it doing this video. I also dislike the number of false alarm light flickers that happen in Doors. Pressure does not do false alarms, and I personally prefer this. But Pressure has no equivalent to the guiding light's assistance with finding necessary objects. It doesn't have to, honestly, but if the devs plan to add bigger rooms in the future, like Doors with its sub-hallway room things where that darn key could be anywhere, I think there should be something visual appearing after a while, not just an audio cue, to indicate where the door unlocky thingy is. Maybe the def mode indicator could just become a staple for everyone if it takes you long enough to locate the object. Pressure's puzzles are also better. There, I said it. On Floor 1, the puzzles in Doors were pretty simple. I'm talking the painting one. Figure's puzzle is good, yeah, but I kinda wanna focus on the puzzle you encounter while just room hopping. The pipe puzzle requires a lot more brain power than the painting puzzle, and that's just what I want out of a puzzle. I wanna have to think about it. Doors does have things that I like better than Pressure though. I don't wanna just sound like a hater. For one, I appreciate the variety in dedicated hiding spots, such as under beds, which have a different animation. I know you barely ever need to use beds, but hey, it's something. I also like the ambience in Doors a lot better than in Pressure. When returning to Doors after playing a lot of Pressure, I noticed you don't often hear ambient noise outside of when lights go out or you hear knocking, or when you hear rain on the windows. And this is kind of hard to mistake for a threat, plus it distracts you less. Pressure has a lot of random noises that play to a point where it starts feeling like overkill, to me anyway. I know it's a comedy, but there are so many different noises that can play that whenever I go in with friends who are newer to the game, I frequently have to say, no, that was ambience, get out of the locker. I feel like the atmosphere would be better if it was just you and the rumbling of the deep ocean outside, less of random little static crackles. But I like the addition of faraway gunshot sounds, intercoms, and voices that actually ties into the story of the game, supporting the idea that multiple other expendable groups or guardsmen are in the black site with you and perhaps aren't doing as well. I just dislike the stuff that's totally random, like it has no actual context, like the classic Roblox horror ambiance, although it is funny to hear, but this is just my personal opinion. I'm certainly not demanding it be removed, but I wanted to give Doors some credit where I felt it was due. Lastly, there are things that Doors recently, or sorta recently, not sure, added, and I think Pressure could take notes from some and definitely not do others. Quickfire real quick. I really don't like the hand grabbing thing that happens now in Doors. It feels silly. but I like that using items takes less time, like with keys. There's no real reason to have unlocking a door take a while. Doors also quieted Rush down a bit. He's not nearly as loud when outside a cabinet as he used to be. Too long didn't read, no doofy hands, less time to scan keycards, quieter rushing monsters would be nice to see in Pressure. You know what Pressure also has? More personality, for better or for worse.
Humpty Dumpty Dum Dum Dum. What? Oh. Where am I? Why am I in a ship? Oh!
Bitch, you are gonna get in this car or I'm popping between your eyes.
Wait, I know you! I saw your dick on Twitter!
Oh, God! Good Lord!
With any popular game on a kid-friendly platform, there's bound to be trouble when it comes to the community, regardless of whether or not the game in question is targeted to kids. I do not frequently engage with the Pressure community, but I've caught wind of issues when it comes to it, which is why I'm including this segment, as to me it is substantial enough to analyze alongside the game itself. I don't speak from inexperience here. While I don't want to make it all about me, I want to be clear I'm not talking out of my ass. Some of you know I worked on the Freedom Planet sequel, yeah? Well, as many games with female heroes get, we got the weirdos. I've seen them, the ones who like Lilac maybe a little too much. And those weirdos, they leak over into looking at the devs and making assumptions, demands, getting frustrated when we don't give them what they want. Speaking of Lilac, I had someone start DMing me, someone who had no stake in the game's story, by the way. I was an artist, demanding an explanation as to why the sequel did not clarify what kind of animal Lilac's dad was. For those unfamiliar with the series, Lilac is a hybrid character, part water dragon and part something else we haven't even decided on or thought about. I've also had people show up telling me about how creepily obsessed they are with her or the other heroines. Notice any similarities in the treatment of our poor water dragon girl and our other notable water dweller? I personally see a lot of familiarity in how Sebastian is looked on by the Pressure community, as an object of obsession, a poster child to claim, spawning a crowd so obsessive it would be difficult to handle even by someone experienced. I think the Pressure fandom is poorly handled by the developers, but I am not blaming them for anything that has happened. Instead, I want to kinda go over it carefully and give at least a little advice on how to prevent things like that from hurting the game's longevity in the first place. After all, it is perfectly understandable that a sudden explosion of fame is not something easily handled. Pressure exploded since release, and these developers were probably expecting a decent turnout, especially with Gianni around, but maybe not this much. Suddenly, you've got this huge community and you gotta learn how to act a completely different way, and you've gotta strictly and quickly mold yourself into a responsible community spearhead. Unfortunately, not everyone is good at that, and mistakes have been made. A lot of the community drama focuses on one thing: Sebastian's marital status and his creator, Zerum. For those unaware, Sebastian is a character created by Zerum, a friend of Zeal, the lead dev. Zerum, in what was probably an attempt to keep Sebastian from being handled in an undesirable way, made him canonically married to an unnamed wife. This was first done by adding a ring to his finger. The fandom did not like that. The fandom went wild. Now, there's no problem with a character being married. If you have a problem with that, you need to go touch grass. I don't have a problem with just that. Hell, I think the ring is a good simple way to remind everybody, hey, this is a character trait he has, without it being too forceful. I do not believe the correct response to push back against this character trait was to attempt to force everyone to have to hear about it all the time. Even if that wasn't the intent, it looked like it was. And interpretation is everything on the internet. Before I continue, I want to make sure you understand that Zerum herself has said that she does not hate self-shippers and does not want to police what people do outside of the official Discord server. The reason this stuff is policed in the Discord server is because many kids are there, and she and Zeal do not want kids to be exposed to anything weird. But still, what a community hates is to be told they cannot do something. I mean, heck, this happened before with this horse anime, I think? There was an anime made about real racehorses represented as anime girls, and the creators begged everyone to not be weird about them. You can probably guess what people then proceeded to do. If a community can run on spite, it will. It's incredibly stupid, but it will. And it happened with Pressure, notably with a new update to a different Roblox game called Regretevator. Regretevator revolves around visiting different rooms via an elevator and meeting different random characters. I don't get it, but the point is, they added a Pressure-themed room, Sebastian's shop, complete with new voice lines for Sebastian. Another feature of Regretevator is the ability to spend coins earned by finishing rooms on items in a little shop. You can buy stuff like a spray bottle, a phone, and a pack of flower petals. Using these items on NPCs spurs different fun interactions with them, and Sebastian is no exception to this. His reaction to receiving rose petals was to thank the player, saying that his wife would love them. Sometimes he would even name his wife Zerum, aka his creator. This was taken by the community as a direct spit to the face, almost like a "he isn't yours, he's mine" statement, and people got mad. Despite his appearance in Regretevator not being canon at all, and naturally being comedic to support the overall silly nature of the game, it still felt like this whole topic was being pushed too hard to the point where it started to kind of ruin Sebastian's character. And honestly, I can see where they're coming from. I can understand reluctance to allow your character to be manhandled by the internet, but there's a point where you gotta handle it a little more delicately than adding something that almost seems like it's trying to insult people who like your character in a way that you do not approve of. There will always be fandom members you don't like with me and not liking lilac obsessors. But there's a point where you really just need to focus on the people you do like, the people you're making the game for, the people who will respect you and your characters. You can't please everyone. Trying to do so is just going to convolute everything and ruin stuff that already worked well. Never give your haters power. Hell, don't even let them know you know about them. If you don't give them attention, they can stay in their little gross corner of the internet and eventually they might get bored. Continuing to feed them or give them reasons to return and fight for their right to be a weirdo just elongates the issue. In this case, it resulted in actual death threats being made towards Zerum, which is not in any circumstance okay. Guys, it is a fish dude in a Roblox game. Touch some grass. Then later, it's clarified by Zeal that Zerum had nothing to do with those lines being added. It was Zeal's idea. And this is where I'm gonna go back to the not knowing how to run a community thing. Adding lines like that was an extremely bad idea, even if the intent was not to harm, to potentially even be a silly gift to Zerum. It's important to learn from this and remember that people will misinterpret things. If you lead a large community and are about to make a decision that has even a chance of going south, you have got to discuss it with the team before going through with it, no matter how silly it is. Make sure everyone is on board with it. In the end, the lines were or will be removed from Regretevator. The room should still be there, but the offending lines will no longer play. It's probably for the best. Zeal, the main creator and modeler of Pressure, is 21 years old. Still pretty young to get a fanbase this big. Hiccups are inevitable and forgivable as long as they're learned from. Going forward, I hope that the community is handled a lot more sensitively and that the developers choose to focus on the positive side of it rather than the negative side. Everyone will be better off for it. If you've stuck around for this whole part, thank you. Hope I made some sense. And speaking of Sebastian, I have my own little headcanon of sorts. You know, I saw someone say, "Look at how he patronizes you in the cover art, patting your head. He does not care for you, nor does he care if you die. You are nothing but a pawn for him. All he wants is data. Next time when you're at his shop, think again if it's worth giving him your precious data." But the way I see it, we should not refuse to help someone if we're not getting paid for it, whether that be in money, affection, or otherwise. If I were in his place, transformed beyond recognition and imprisoned in the depths of the sea, I would not care for the dozens of lives passing me by, and why should I? Why should he? Getting attached only makes escape harder, especially when you're not likely to make it much further. Sebastian owes you nothing for your data. He does not have to give you anything. The fact that he does says something about his humanity, regardless of any personal thoughts on you. His strength makes it evident that he could just as easily kill you for it, but he does not. He has respect for you if you have respect for him. We should respect him at the very least. I give Sebastian data because whether or not I make it to the end, he did not deserve the fate thrust on him. So if I can help just a little, then I'll do it, no matter what he thinks of me. I cannot blame him for what the world has done to him. To do so over such a shallow concept as attraction is selfish. All I want from Sebastian is what he continues to give. A friendly face and a friendly banter to break up the tedium. Somewhere safe to heal, to take a break, or fix my stupid audio drivers. We don't need to be more than acquaintances. I don't need to force myself on him. He doesn't even need to know that I want to help, just as long as I try to. Wouldn't I want the same? You're listening to Elevator FS. Stop! Okay. Oh, I didn't realize how horrifying my icon is. Should I be avoiding the hairy man? Oh, that's not a thing I should step on. Yeesh. You having fun in there? Sonic the Hedgehog. Oh, that's how I spectate. Clover does not seem to be... What the actual is that? Hello. Who the are you? Exactly. That's so cute. Oh my god, my baby. My kitty. I'll pay for you every time, kitty. I would like to buy choose floor. Pursue! Freaking bet. Did I get shot? Shoot me! Stop flashing him so that I can flash him. No!